everyone, it's Katie coming at you with my first moon video. It's for the new moon in Cancer on July 20th. It's going to be the first moon video that I'm posting, and I'm going to be posting 2 every moon cycle, one for the new moon and one for the full moon. So whatever asbat you prefer, I've got something for you, and I love it if you want to tune in. So today I'm going to talk to you about retrogrades. I'm going to talk to you about listening to your inner guide. We're going to do some new moon wishing, and I'm going to pick some cards for you. So let's get started. First I want to talk about retrogrades, because people seem to have, pretty much everywhere I go, people seem to have a huge misunderstanding of retrogrades and what they are, the function that they serve, and we tend to think of them as being these very antagonistic cycles happening in the cosmos, and I don't think that that's even remotely accurate. I think that planets, their job and the way that they function astrologically is to bring us closer to ourselves and to bring us closer to the universe and to help us be our best selves. So whatever is happening in the cosmos, it's always going to be for the best, especially if you are willing to offer little resistance and really harmonize with those cycles. Then they're just going to keep lifting you higher. So you know, if you look at it logically, productivity is not always the best thing. You know, like if you're sick, you obviously don't want that illness to be super productive. If you're in a toxic relationship, you don't want that to go so far. If you are in a career that isn't right for you, you don't want to get really locked into that. You know, I could go on forever about the things that we get into that aren't right for us. And, you know, life doesn't always offer second chances to correct course and really walk away from things with minimal consequences. But that's exactly what retrogrades are, and we have been having tons of retrogrades in more recent years. It seems like they're all happening on top of one another, and that's a really good thing. That's really helpful thing, especially if you have been stuck in a rut, if you have been struggling, if life just generally feels like it's not going in the direction that you want it to, then retrogrades are really going to be so beneficial for you. So you know, we want to think about it like, you know, humans were creatures of habit. It's totally a cliche, but it is true. And we get stuck in these routines because they're comfortable, but they're not always what's right for us. And so sometimes we need to shake up the rhythm in our lives and find a new rhythm and find our own rhythm. And we need to pull the weeds out before they get really rooted into our life, if you catch my metaphor. And the kindest we can be in that way is quick. So the less you resist it, the easier it's gonna be. It's like taking off a Band-Aid. If you do it quick, it's over with, and you can move on with your life. So let's get started. We'll talk about Jupiter first. Jupiter is my bae. He is the great benefic. He is one of the, I would say, kindest and gentlest planets in our astrological wheel. And he rules education, he rules philosophy and religion, and when we say education, I mean higher education. So like not your basics, but that really deep thought, that the academia that really propels you into the higher parts of life and of society. And so because Jupiter is the king of the gods, right? So at least in Roman mythology, and I know he has equivalents in all different kinds of pantheons. But his energy is always super kind, and he also rules our fortune. So he's very lavish, and he's very extravagant, and he's very expansive. And you know, if you have ever heard of the Jupiter stride, it's when you have this bounding walk and your stride is very wide, and it's a great way to bring Jupiter's energy into your life and bring confidence to yourself. So just keep that in mind. The Jupiter retrograde in particular is going to be actually really probably the gentlest of retrogrades, because Jupiter is so kind that whether his motion is forward or backwards, it's generally going to be a pretty easy energy to work with. He is you know, if you think about Jupiter physically speaking, when like space junk is hurtling at Earth, Jupiter's orbit is so strong and so big that it will pull that stuff into its orbit and keep it from hitting Earth. So it is actually one of our great protectors, and it is one of the things that makes sure that life on Earth is possible, because the cosmos, their harmony is what creates the platform for all of this to happen. So Jupiter, when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's a great time to do continuing education. So let's say like you're a lawyer. And this is just the easiest example I can think of because both my parents are lawyers. So, you know, every couple of years they would have to go back and they would have to take some classes to keep their license to practice. And what that would do is it would get them up to date on any new laws. It would teach them any new like standards of practice and everything like that, just so that they could be the best at what they were doing. And so that's something that Jupiter is excellent for, is making sure that you are continuing to just be great in your field. And so that's not even uncomfortable. That's, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm a super nerd, and that's, I think, super fun to be able to go and learn more about whatever it is that you do that you love. Jupiter retrograde is great if you are ready to change careers. And I know that like there are studies that say people change careers like 3 times in their life. And you know, that's obviously not true for everybody, but if you are looking to change careers, a Jupiter retrograde is a great time to do that with minimal consequences. If you need a good reference, you know, all of those things, talk to Jupiter. It's also great for expanding your career. So let's say, you know, because with Jupiter's expansive energy, let's say you want to broaden the field that you work in. Let's use the example of a massage therapist. Let's say you have that license and you want to go and learn acupuncture, or you want to get your Reiki certification so that you have more to offer your clients. Jupiter retrograde is perfect for that. Or even if you have been out of school for a while and like put your degree on pause and you're ready to go back to school, that's what I've been working on. I started last semester, and it's, you know, it's Jupiter retrograde is a great time to come back to that, or to overhaul personal philosophies. If you have been like raised in a religion that you don't agree with anymore, or if you've been carrying beliefs that don't serve you anymore, Jupiter retrograde is a great time to put those things down and find something new, or make room for something new. Because, you know, sometimes we want to put things down and we want to fill that space immediately because we don't really like feeling emptiness in our space. We don't like having empty space. But sometimes that's a good thing if we give a little time for what is right for us to come to us, instead of having to weed out things twice. Just let it happen. You know, let things come to you. So I think that's all for Jupiter. But in that note, I do want to add that, as always, in any kind of situation where you're making changes, make sure that you're taking it slow, and like as slow as is possible, and just really tune in with yourself and make sure that you are going for what you want. Don't take on other people's stuff. Don't take on their own ideals because you want their approval. You don't need their approval, and it doesn't matter what they think about you. So don't take on other people's stories about you. Do what you want with your life. It makes things easier. So I guess we'll go on to talk about Saturn retrograde. And Saturn's kind of my buddy. And I know a lot of people actually have issues with Saturn because he can be sort of authoritarian. He represents authority and discipline in our lives. And so he can be kind of a hard ass. But the thing about Saturn is that, like, when I think about Saturn, I think about, like, Saturn's not the minister of magic. He is Dumbledore, right? So, or like maybe Snape. And so like he seems like he's against you, but he really wants the best for you. And so he might whip your ass a little bit to make sure that you are doing what you need to do so that you can have the best things in life. So, Saturn really wants you, when he's in retrograde, he wants you to cultivate self-discipline and really figure out what that means for you. And, you know, Saturn won't be so hard on you if you are behaving with self-discipline and showing yourself love and, developing routines that that really benefit you. That because if you are able to discipline yourself, if you're able to manage yourself, then you can create big things. But you can't create big things if you're not willing to lay a solid foundation upon which to build. And those are going to be the routines that sort of weave their way through our lives every day. So that's like brushing your teeth every morning and night. That's like making sure you shower regularly and do your skincare and get to bed at a good time and eat mindfully, drink water, those kinds of things. Saturn wants to make sure that you are taking care of the basics, that you are, getting those things done that need to happen for you in order for your life to function. And so when we are, if you're like caught in a cycle of depression or anything like that, Saturn can really be, it can feel like he's malignant, but he's not. He might, like I said, he might shake things up in your life a little bit. But what Saturn retrograde is asking you to do is, if you picked up these bad habits from somewhere, or like if you are acting out bad habits because you didn't necessarily get what you needed when you were a kid, Saturn retrograde wants you to reparent yourself. And that's regardless of if your parents were functional or dysfunctional or whatever. Everybody needs to do some degree of reparenting ourselves, right? Because we become adults and then it's like, whoa, no bedtime. And sometimes you need a bedtime. So, just listen to Saturn, tune in with what Saturn wants for you, tune in to what you want for you. That can really, really benefit you. It can create a rhythm in your life upon which you can build all of your other dreams. And before I leave Saturn, I also want to mention that because Saturn is further away from Earth, his effects can be a little bit more global. And so remember I said Saturn rules authority, and if we look at what's going on right now, we are in the middle of a huge social justice movement, possibly one of the biggest and baddest of all times. And I say bad to mean good, just so everybody's clear on that. And that's actually a perfect example with the police brutality that's happening, with Black Lives Matter, with everything. Saturn retrograde is coming at a perfect time, because right now we're overhauling those systems because they're not working anymore, because people who are in positions of authorities are abusing people of color and people who are, not privileged with essentially being white, just because they can. And that's not working. That's not okay. There's absolutely nothing that is right about that. And so what we're experiencing in the middle of this Saturn retrograde is actually really interesting, because people are standing up and they're saying no more, and it's actually having an effect, because people are kind of being disciplined about this in a way. It does take discipline to go out and protest and show up every day and make sure that is happening, and to keep at it. That takes a tremendous amount of mettle. So I think that's all I have to say about Saturn. So moving on to Neptune, who rules our dreams and our imagination. And those two things are a huge part of how we create our realities. Because, if you look around, everything that we have created as humans started in somebody's imagination. So if you are a worst case scenarist like me, Neptune retrograde is actually perfect for you, because because it's kind of, when you do that, when you're always envisioning the worst possible thing that could happen, that's a misuse of our imagination, and we don't want to create those things in our reality. So Neptune retrograde is perfect if you suffer from any kind of anxiety, to sort of weed those things out, or go and get help for them, find a therapist, an energy worker, whatever floats your boat, but find some way to work on going through life without always living in fear, because that is what it is. I mean, at its most basic level, if you're constantly envisioning the worst possible thing that could happen and being afraid of that thing happening, then that is, that's totally like anxiety disorder, like textbook. So, it might behoove you, if you feel like that describes you, to find somebody who can help you with that. And I know I recently found somebody who's great to work with, and I love it. But I won't get too much into that. I also want to talk about how Neptune, because Neptune rules our dreams, Neptune retrograde is great for if you are a big dreamer, also like me, to make room for new dreams, but also to tune in with the dreams that you have and make sure they are still relevant to you, and make sure they are still what you want, and also make sure that they have a tether to reality, because sometimes we dream really big and it's not always realistic. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't dream big. You absolutely should dream big. There is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't. But sometimes we have these extravagant dreams and we don't always come up with a plan for how we're going to make it happen, or we don't realize that that we're co-creators, and so we push really, really hard to make things happen, but we're not making room for the universe to work with us, right? So it's a great time to ground your dreams, and sort of bring them into fruition, by coming up with like tangible measures that you can take in order to sort of help make those happen, but also for making room for the universe to work with you, and be open to signage that is trying to tell you like what direction to move in. So now we're going to move on to Pluto, and Pluto is the king of the underworld. You might also know him as Hades. And Pluto is great for, the Pluto retrograde, rather, is great for shadow work. So if you're familiar with Carl Jung, he talks all about working with your shadow. And so everybody has a light side and a dark side. And there's nobody that doesn't have the dark side. We all do. And we are a very complex mix of those two things. And but we often don't like the dark side of us, and so we try and shove it down, and we try and put it aside and try and pretend like that's not what we are, because we don't want to be angry or sad, or have these tendencies that we have decided we don't like about ourselves. And so we try very, very hard to pretend like those things aren't there, but they still are. They're just in the background, festering and rotting out our lives. Like it's like an apple with a rotten core. The whole apple is bad. So Saturn really wants you to figure out how to engage that dark side, and figure out what it wants, and figure out how to feed it, and figure out how to use it for good. Because that is what the ultimate goal of shadow work is to figure out how to take that shadow and kind of create a dialogue with it, and figure out how you can channel it into things that are for the benefit of the planet. And so Saturn is kind of asking you to like, discover your ancestral patterns, like things that you picked up from your parents or your grandparents, and so on and so forth. Figure out what's yours, figure out what's not, do some digging in the graveyard of the past, and sort of check that out. And my baby is crying. I think Pops has him, but I'm not sure. So do some digging in the graveyard of the past. You don't want to live there, but learn from what you find there, and bring it with you, so that you can, do all the good things that you're here to do. So speaking of the graveyard of the past, that brings us to our final retrograde, which is Chiron. And Chiron is the centaur, the wounded healer that I mentioned earlier, I think. And Chiron wants you to face the wounds of your inner child. So things that happened to you in the past, especially when you were younger, Chiron really wants you to figure out what those things are and to bring them to the light and heal them. So, you know, again, so you can move forward when everything goes direct again. And so really check out the Inner Garden meditation. That's a quick Google search away, and it's really awesome. You know, you go into your inner garden and you look at what's weeds, you look at what are plants that need your love, and you pull out the weeds and you know, cultivate the plants, and really just keep tuning in with that inner garden, you know, and tuning in with your inner child, and give that inner child what it needs, that it feels like it didn't get. Like for me, I don't really identify with the inner child as like a very young child, but I do identify with my inner child as like an adolescent. So I tune in with her and make sure she has everything that she wants and needs, because your inner child can really be a great ally for you as you learn to work with them. So I think that covers it for retrogrades. And one final note on retrogrades: don't approach every retrograde with like, what shouldn't I do? Focus on what you should do during the retrogrades, because they are useful. They're not things that you need to hide from or that you need to avoid. They're things you need to face and engage and use to your advantage, because that is what life is about. It's about being resourceful, it's about being creative, and it is about figuring out how to take the hand that you got dealt and make it work for you. And retrogrades are no exception. So with that all being said, let's move on to wishes. So new moons are excellent for wishes. So what I like to do every new moon is write down like 3 to 5 wishes that I have. Sometimes I meditate on them. Sometimes I pull cards on them. What I'm going to do for us here is I'm going to pick 3 cards, and I'm going to put an item on each card, and I'm going to have you look at the cards and pick one of them that resonates most with you, and then I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to read them for you, and whatever card you picked is speaking to your wishes on how you can manifest them and what you can do to sort of work with them, or if what you're wishing for is right for you. So let's get started on that. So while you're writing down your wishes, I am going to shuffle my cards. Crazy child is in there. It's like, breastfeed me. And I will, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay. So I'm just going to do a couple shuffles. Get your wishes written down. By the way, I am using the Joie de Vivre Tarot deck by Paulina Cassidy. I think it's from US Games is who published it, and it's a great deck. It has a very like cheerful overtone for people who are worst case scenarists like me, and the art is just really beautiful. Go lay down, CB. Go lay down. Dog out. Dog out. Go lay down. Don't lick my cast irons. It's the puppy dog. So we are shoveling and we are shoveling. And I'm going to drink some tea. You better make sure your wishes are good. I'm just kidding. You can do what you want to. And I'm gonna cut the deck one time. Boop. All right, one more. I'm feeling one more. Okay. So let's pick some cards. I have not seen them, so I'm going to be reading them on the fly. 1, 2, and 3. So the first card is going to be underneath this beautiful Tree of Life pendant. So this is for card 1. Card 2 is going to be underneath this quartz wand. So this is for card 2. And card 3 is going to be under this super cute raven bottle. This is for card 3. So whichever item you thought was pretty, or just kind of caught your eye, pick that one and I will read the cards for you. I don't want to move the phone because I'm not going to get it back at the right angle. So 1, 2, 3. So for card 1, that's the Amethyst Tree of Life. We have the 2 of Coins. So I don't know if that's focusing. Is it focusing? Focus on it, camera. Okay, so if you can see from the 2 of Coins, this guy's kind of doing a little dance. There's a lot of balancing happening in this card. The 2 of Coins really talks about like you're juggling things, and the coins is the suit of earth. So this is a very material card, and what it is talking about is you and your wishes. You might have to do a little bit of finessing to get these things. So you might need to do some strategizing, some balancing, and it might be a little bit of a grind. You know what I mean? Like stay on your grind and keep working, because when you're juggling the coins, it's kind of like just sort of maybe living paycheck to paycheck, but really just like, or maybe you have a lot going on. Either way, like this is a very busy card. It's a very active card, which is not typical of an earth suit, because earth is generally very solid and slow moving, but we all know that it does move sometimes, like in the case of earthquakes or wind picking up a big cloud of dust and carrying it, which is more of the sense that I get from this card. Like it's not positive or negative. But you are definitely going to have to do some grinding to get whatever it is that you're wishing for. So remain disciplined, learn to budget. That's definitely a big thing with the 2 of Coins, is learning how to like balance a checkbook, you know what I mean, or a ledger. Just learn how to keep your finances in balance and keep them in check, because it is so to your benefit. And the more that money knows you're going to manage it, the more it wants to come to you. So make sure that you are being sensible with your finances, and things should start to manifest for you. So for card 2, which is this lovely quartz wand, we have the 6 of Cups. So when you're thinking about your wishes, the 6 of Cups has to do with nostalgia and feelings from the past. So maybe you are trying to get back a feeling that you once had. And I'm going to cover 2 different things that this card could possibly mean. But the first is that, like, the first thing that comes to my mind is that sometimes we're trying to get back to a certain time that like really has a very like golden glow for us, and we really view it with the rose tinted glasses, and we remember it really fondly, and it gives us really great feelings. And so we can spend so much time trying to get back to that, and that's not always productive, because like for me, I definitely have felt that, and I realized that it wasn't me longing for just the place that I was trying to get to. It was me longing for that time that I was trying to get to, which you can never get back. Like, it's a gift and it's also gone. So things are fleeting. Or if you want to get really quantum about it, it's all happening at the same time. So it's happening somewhere, but it's not where you are right now. So it's good to dip in the waters of the past and get those good feelings from it. But like we were saying with Pluto and the graveyard of the past, you don't want to live there. That's not any kind of place for the living. You need to come back to present and live your life. And that is how you can start manifesting whatever it is you're wishing for. But you also want to examine those wishes and make sure that that's what you want. So another thing this card can be talking to is learning from the past and going into your past and figuring out what worked for you then and what didn't work. So, what comes to mind right now is like repeating cycles. So, this card can be talking about breaking cycles and also figuring out what cycles worked. But definitely, if you had something happen and it didn't work for you, or you feel like you have been repeating a situation in your life over and over, like same name or same game, different name sort of thing, the Six of Cups can really be telling you to step back from that cycle and break it, because it's not serving you. And the second that you break that cycle, you've made room for whatever it is you're wishing for to come to you. So I believe that covers it for the Six of Cups. Card 3, if you picked card 3, the Raven Bottle. Let's see. 10 of Swords. So I don't want to sugarcoat this, but if you got the 10 of Swords, you have been through some shit. So the 10 of Swords is like the bottom of the wheel. And it has like a dark side and a light side. So the dark side of it is that like you're probably not in a very great place right now, and it might suck. But the light side of it is that like you can't get any lower than you are right now. And so if that is what you're feeling, first of all, I feel you, and I've been there, and my heart goes out to you. I feel for you. And you are going to be all right. Because she is holding her sword. She's got the strength to wield that sword. So you're going to be okay. It's not always, it's never easy to be where you're at, but, if you can pick yourself up and keep going, then there are things that are out there for you. So, really like what we were talking about with Saturn, really need to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself, and make sure that you are just giving yourself the basics. Like, make sure you're getting enough rest, make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure that you are tending to your inner garden and taking care of your mind. A lot of the times 10 of Swords can also talk about like mental illness. So if you are suffering from any kind of illness in that way, it's always great to find somebody, and that can feel super overwhelming. But there are tons of people out there who are trying to make mental health care more accessible and more affordable. Also, if you have Medicaid, it will totally cover it. So just be on the lookout for your options. Even just talking to a friend can be helpful. So if you are suffering from any kind of depression or anxiety or any sort of stuff, like don't give in to the stigma that surrounds all that. Like, you are worthy of having a great life. So, find the help that you need. And if you need help finding the help that you need, then talk to somebody close to you. It's going to be worth it. So another thing that this card reminds me of is, if maybe this doesn't describe you, what I've just talked about, this can also be coming as a sort of warning, that perhaps what you are wishing for is not in your best interest. So sometimes we want things so badly that it's all that we can see. And the universe kind of will keep you from having those things because it's in your best interest. And so what comes to mind right now is, your parents, aren't supposed to let you eat candy and go to bed without brushing your teeth, or, have candy for breakfast, whatever, because it's terrible for you. And like, maybe all you wanted was the candy, but that's not what's going to be what's best for you. And especially like, as you get older, you don't want your teeth to rot out of your head. So like, that is, the right thing for them to do, is not let you have the candy. And so like, maybe that's a terrible analogy, but this reminds me of like when I was in high school, I had a crush on one of my friends, and like, I wanted him so bad, but it just never happened. And there were opportunities where it could have happened and it just didn't. And now that I'm older, 10 years older, I a couple years ago saw him, and I'm just so glad that the universe didn't give that to me, because I do not, no, I'm so glad that I am not having to deal with that. So, you know, and he aged like a banana. So it's like you've gotta give the universe its credit there, and just recognize that, like, if you've been pushing super 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 hard for something to happen for you, and it's just not happening, it's okay to, like, just set it down for a minute. And if something new comes up, that's great. And if you go back to it, that's great. But sometimes the universe will keep things from you for your best interest. And that's, sometimes that's just got to be okay with us. And I think that's all I have to say about this card. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to mention. I'm going to take a sip of tea and see if I remember. Yeah, so don't feel like you need to what is meant for you is never going to be withheld from you. You know, it's like what they say, like, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. That whole cliche. So, um, you know, just really really examine these wishes that you've written down, and try and figure out why you want them, and feel like look at if you feel like something is missing from you, or you feel like this is gonna fill some hole that you feel inside of you, like that's that these wishes probably aren't going to do what you think they will. You might think that they're going to make you happy, but they're not. And maybe you need to get your wish and realize that it wasn't meant to make you happy. You know, sometimes that's a lesson we have to learn. But yeah, I would say take care, be cautious, and do some deep digging. So that concludes the cards. Um, I think one more thing I wanted to talk about was listening to your inner guide. So, because that's kind of in lieu of like a ritual that I would, you know, this is kind of, I think, something that is sort of a precursor to doing kind of any sort of ritual work, is listening to your inner guide. So you know what truth is and you know what not truth is. And if you can listen deep down, my child is crazy. If you can listen to what is happening like in your gut, you know, it's if you're not good at it, then get good at it, because it's going to be one of your greatest allies in life. So you know, when you hear truth, you might have like a physical response. I know some people get chills. I know some people sneeze, or, you know, they have the goosebumps, or they have an overwhelming feeling of joy, or they get a bad feeling about somebody. And that is, you know, there's like a whole, it's going to be different for everybody. So you really need to tune in with yourself and figure out what truth feels like for you. And you also need to figure out what a lie feels like for you. So um like I'm an excellent judge of character, so like I know what's going on right off the bat with people. And I know that's a lot of the times that's just a Gemini thing, because we're very analytic and we're just really good at reading people. But if you get a pit in your stomach, or you feel nauseous, or you are having palpitations, or you're sweating, you're feeling anxiety, a lot of the times that can indicate that something is not true. So, like, for instance, I had a friend who brought up a popular conspiracy that's going around right now that's just ridiculous. But she was freaking out about it, and it was making her feel like shit. And I don't blame her, because it was like a horrible thing, but it's not true. And so, you know, I told her this, and she was just like, the relief was palpable. So, you know, really tune in with yourself when you have questions about things, because usually you do have the answers inside of you. And learn to trust that inner voice. And like, you know, I want to make a note too, though, that if somebody is giving you a bad feeling, then you should just get away from them. Like that's different than like recognizing a lie. When you know that happens, it's very different. Like, you know what people's intentions are, you know what's so, and always, of course, balance that intuition with tangible physical measures, like, you know, carry protection if you're comfortable with that. Just common sense precautions. Like I carry mace. I love my mace. So just do what you need to do to take care of yourself and look out for yourself, and aid your intuition in keeping you safe and keeping you on the right track and showing you the right paths for you. And I want to bring it back to a positive note that, like, when you recognize a path that's right for you, you'll know it. So, you know, usually your first instinct is the right one. Your logical mind is the thing that comes in and says, well, what about this and what about that and blah, 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 blah. And so, you know, it takes some practice to learn to tune in with that and listen to it. But once you get good at it, you'll be great. I know you can do it. So I want to close up this video with some recommended reading. Sage Woman Magazine needs your subscription. No, they are not paying me to say this, but they are an excellent publication. I think they come out quarterly. I know most of us like to read on our phones. I know I do, but this magazine is totally worth the money, and it's a very small publication. It's a bunch of wonderful women who are just writing excellent articles. If you're not a woman, there's probably still like some wisdom in there for you. So, you know, however you identify, be sure to check it out. Even just one, not article, what's the word? Not episode. I can't think of it right now. One issue. Wow. Okay. So I'm tired. It's late. But check out Sage Woman Magazine. They definitely need subscriptions. So, they also have a counterpart magazine, which is Witches and Pagans. So if you're into that, also check it out. And also, these magazines have the best art in them. Like, I cut out all of the art from the magazines and put it all over my walls. It's like, not free art because you have to pay for the magazine, but like, this stuff is great. Like, I can't believe that I'm only getting it for as little money as it is. So go check them out. I'm going to post a link in the caption below. Next week, I'm going to be, not next week, but next moon, full moon. I think it's August something. I'll post about it. But on the full moon, I'm going to be talking to you about quantum physics and magic, which is one of my favorite topics. It is all about like the scientific side of magic, and so how you can make that work for you. We're going to be doing an awesome manifestation meditation, so we're going to be moving into doing a little bit of spell work. This is my favorite thing to do. You don't need any supplies, just going to let you know right now. We will get to the point where we might be doing some stuff like that, but this is going to be just something that you can do with your mind anywhere you are, and if you get really good at it, there's no limits to what you can create with yourself. So I'm just going to leave you now with an affirmation to carry with you, with your wishes until we meet again for the full moon, and it's beauty is my birthright. So carry that and figure out your relationship with beauty, figure out what is beautiful to you. Being able to appreciate beauty is one of the things that makes us human. So, you know, find what's beautiful about you, find what's beautiful in the world, and just really take some time to appreciate it and know that it's your birthright to appreciate beauty. So thanks for tuning in. If you've hung with me to the end, I appreciate you guys so much, and have a happy new moon.